Welcome back to the Loom, where we turn powerful books into simple stories you will actually remember. If you are new here, hit subscribe to join our community. We share a new story every single day. Today, we look at what happens when you hold a powerful man's secret for 10 years. You might think it makes you safe. It does not. Reminding a politician of what he owes you is a fast way to make yourself a target. Clara shoved the grease-stained brass cord into socket 42. Her stiff thumbs slipping against the cold collar of the plug. The municipal exchange was freezing. Outside, the gray port city was disappearing under a heavy winter blizzard. But inside, the only heat came from a single iron stove that choked on wet coal. Clara sucked on a hard, bitter horehound candy to keep from coughing. For 30 years, she had sat on this high wooden stool, connecting the voices of judges, sailors, and thieves, keeping their secrets locked behind her teeth. A low, rhythmic clicking vibrated through the floorboards. In the basement below, men in greasy canvas jackets were unboxing the new Stroger automatic switches. They looked like gray steel cabinets filled with thousands of tiny, moving metal fingers. No operators needed. Just cold, mechanical relays that did not require a pension or a lunch break. Clara reached into her pocket and touched the crinkled envelope from St. Jude's Clinic. The paper was soft from her sweat. The clinic had doubled the price for Martha's daily heart drops, and Clara's savings were entirely gone. If her pension was cut next month like the city council threatened, she would have to bring Martha back to their damp, unheated basement apartment on the docks. She watched the snow accumulate on the window ledge, her mind drifting back to a rainy night a decade ago. It was 3 a.m. when a young, frantic Commissioner Vance had burst through the double doors of the exchange. He was missing his hat. His expensive wool coat had a long tear down the sleeve, and he was chewing frantically on raw ginger root to hide the smell of gin on his breath. Vance had made 3 illegal calls to a private shipping warehouse, calls that proved he was taking bribes from the harbor cartel. If the morning inspectors saw those paper logs, he was finished. He begged Clara to help him. Clara, believing that neighbors should look out for each other, pulled the slips from the metal spindle and dropped them into the red coals of the stove. She didn't ask for money. Vance had grabbed her hands, his palms sweaty and shaking, and swore he would never forget what she did for him. She believed him. She kept that promise in her head like a bank deposit, waiting for the day she would need to withdraw it. Now, the automatic switches were clicking in the basement, and Clara's time was running out. She decided to go to the top. Vance was now the Chief Modernization Commissioner, the man who held the pen that would sign away her pension. The next morning, Vance arrived at the exchange for a formal inspection, trailing a dozen investors. He didn't look like the panicked boy from 10 years ago, but he still had his nervous habit, a raw patch of red eczema on the side of his neck, which he scratched constantly with a small, silver-plated pocket file. He walked past Clara's station without a glance. Clara waited until he stepped into the records room to avoid the damp draft of the main gallery. She followed him inside, pulling the heavy oak door shut until the latch clicked. The room smelled of moldy paper and floor wax. She spoke softly, explaining Martha's condition and the rising cost of the clinic. She asked him to exempt her from the pension cuts. Vance listened with a blank, frozen face, scratching his neck. He offered her nothing but a polite shrug, saying public budgets had no room for personal sentiment. Clara felt a sudden, sharp coldness in her chest. She stepped closer and whispered the date of the rainy night, the 3 phone calls, and the slips she had burned. Vance did not look afraid. His eyes went flat. He pocketed his file, adjusted his stiff collar, and told her that old favors did not buy modern coal. He walked past her, his boots loud on the bare pine floor, and left her alone in the dusty room. Clara walked home through the freezing slush, her boots leaking water at the seams. She was frantic. She fumbled with her house key, dropping it twice into the muddy ice before her stiff fingers could guide it into the lock. Her quiet appeal to his memory had failed, and she knew she had to use a heavier hammer. Inside her small kitchen, she pried up a loose pine board near the woodpile. She pulled out a dented tin of Lipton's tea. 10 years ago, Clara had not been entirely foolish. She had kept the carbon duplicates of Vance's illegal call logs, tucked away for a day just like this. She put the papers into a heavy manila envelope and walked straight to Vance's office at City Hall. The office was warm and smelled of expensive Turkish tobacco. Vance was sitting at his mahogany desk, But he wasn't alone. Alderman Sterling, his fiercest political rival, was sitting in a leather chair by the window, slowly peeling a red apple with a pocket knife. Clara did not hesitate. She slid the envelope onto the desk in front of Vance. She told him she wanted her sister's medical bills paid and her pension guaranteed in writing. If it wasn't done by morning, those carbon slips would go directly to Alderman Sterling. Vance didn't even look at the envelope. He simply nodded toward the window. Alderman Sterling closed his pocket knife with a sharp click, stood up, and took the envelope off the desk. He slipped the yellowed carbons out, used one of them to wipe the sticky apple juice from his blade, and then casually tossed the bundle into the bottom drawer of his own briefcase. Clara stood frozen as Sterling laughed, a dry, rattling sound. Vance explained the reality. The two politicians were public rivals, but they were private business partners. They had quietly split the city's new automatic switch contract between them. The automation was going to make them both incredibly rich, and they had no intention of letting an old woman's complaints get in the way. Clara's hands began to shake. By trying to force Vance's hand, she had shown him exactly how dangerous she was. She had brought the evidence directly to the only two men who had the power to destroy her. Vance pressed a small brass button on his desk. Two police officers, who had been waiting in the hallway, stepped into the room. Vance told them that Clara had attempted to blackmail a city official. Because of her long service, they wouldn't lock her up, but she was fired on the spot. Her pension was completely revoked, and she was banned from the exchange forever. They let her out through the grand marble lobby and pushed her into the biting wind. Clara stood on the icy cobblestones, pulling her thin wool shawl tight against the freezing air. She had nothing left. Behind her, the high-arched windows of City Hall glowed with warm light, while across the river, the automatic switches in the exchange clicked coldly, over and over, into the winter night. This story is inspired by Robert Greene's book, The 48 Laws of Power. Specifically, it shows what happens when you break Law 13. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude. Clara's mistake is a common one, but it is always dangerous. When you remind someone of a past favor, you do not make them feel grateful. You make them feel weak and obligated. You remind them of a time when they were vulnerable, and most people will do anything to erase that feeling. By trying to force Vance with his past, Clara turned herself into a threat that had to be removed. If Clara wanted to save her sister, she should have used Law 13 the right way. She should have shown Vance how keeping her on served his own future goals. Clara should have offered Vance a way to use the automated transition to look like a hero. She could have suggested he appoint her as a public training supervisor, showing the voters that he was a leader who cared about protecting older workers during modernization. This would have helped him win his upcoming election, making her pension a natural part of his own political victory. We know you are busy, and finding time to read massive books can be tough. That is why we do this. We turn deep, life-changing ideas into clear, memorable stories you can use in your own life. If you want to keep learning these practical strategies through storytelling, hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell. It helps our channel grow and ensures you never miss our daily lessons. I want to know your thoughts. Have you ever tried to get help by reminding someone of a favor, only to have it backfire? Let me know in the comments below. See you in the next story.